Colleen, it's so great to see you again. Believe it or not, we met almost 20 years ago
Oh, I
when
can't
you,
believe that.
I know, when you were working for then Prince Charles, William, and Harry. Tell us,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about the position you held in the royal family.
Well, I came into the royal family, into the royal household, I should say, after the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, when Prince of Wales and the family were undergoing quite serious criticism from the media and from the public at large, actually. So they were feeling very, very sensitive about issues. And so they brought in some additional help, and that was me. So that's when I joined. So the mood was quite low when I joined the household, and my job was to come up with a strategy, if you like, to try and get us through that difficult period.
What was your strategy, Colleen?
Well, without revealing too much, really it was to focus on the work of the Prince of the Wales as much as we could. So to divert attention away from his personal life and to focus on his charitable efforts. Because as you know, whilst he's been Prince of Wales, and it has been a long time, over 50 years now, that he was Prince of Wales before being crowned yesterday, he devoted most of his time to charitable work and to raising some sensitive and delicate issues around subject areas that he thought didn't get enough attention. So the marginalised youth, around the environment, sustainability, ethnic diversity, a lot of issues that people found it hard to discuss 20 years ago, 15 years ago, probably even 10 years ago. How things have changed in recent years. It's all part of dinner party conversation now, isn't it, to talk about the environment and recycling. But he was actually scoffed at and laughed at. So we spent a lot of time trying to build up a profile around that charitable work, because it's a very significant part of who he is. The other thing that we focused attention on was to stop the other voices, because there were a lot of people out there speaking on his behalf, thinking that they were doing well and supporting him. And actually, it was making the messages very muddled and confused. And you had some very old-fashioned views as well out there. So we asked those people to step aside, if you like, and to stop making comment, and left it to him to speak about the issues that mattered to him.
What was he like as a boss, and what is he like as a man?
As a boss, I mean, prior to working for the Prince of Wales, as he was then, I'd worked for government ministers mainly, a bit of private sector work, but mainly government ministers. So it was really a bit of a change, because it was more about the person, the whole person, rather than just his work. So obviously we had to deal with some very sensitive and delicate issues, but he understood that. And he was willing to listen and to try to accommodate where he could. I would say that he, is very much a sort of Renaissance man in a way, always thinking, always, wanting to hear views from professionals, experts, and so on. So as a boss, it meant that he was quite considered. I wouldn't say that, he was a pushover. You had to argue your points very carefully and to be quite persuasive, but he was open-minded and he was prepared to listen. And I think he still is. And he will bring that, I think, to his new role as the king. I think he will bring those qualities with him. He's always wanted to listen and learn.
I wanted to ask you, Colleen, about criticism of him. It seems that he faces, or has faced during his entire life, a fair amount of derision and criticism, and people basically saying that he didn't measure up. Certainly, even as a child, he faced bullying and had a very difficult time, didn't seem to fit in. And I'm curious about your perspective on that.
Well, yes, I think that is true, actually. I think people just haven't understood him. He is probably a person out of his time. He wasn't the typical young man of his day. He is a more sensitive soul. He loves the arts, and music is tremendously important to him. And he wasn't, the rough and tumble young man that was more the image of that time, probably. But he's very much a man of today, very sensitive to a lot of the issues that we all care about, very empathetic. So all of those qualities have come into play now, but I think they were misunderstood when he was growing up. And I do think he did have quite a difficult time, but he would say he learned a lot as well.
You attended the coronation. Tell us about your impressions of the day.
It was I don't know what, I can't think of the right adjective, actually. It was just amazing. It was spectacular. When I arrived at the Abbey, it was like going to a very big family wedding at the beginning, because we were all excited, as we all had to queue to get into the Abbey, no matter who you were. So you were in the queue with celebrities and stars and, all sorts of really important people that had made a big contribution to society, to life. And everyone was just chatting and buzzing. And I think we were all just very excited. And then when we got into the Abbey, of course, you're spotting all these different people in different seats and getting to know your own little pew of people and chatting to them. But then when the music started, the mood changed completely. So all that chit-chat stopped and everyone really paid attention. And it was like a very grand church service. So it did feel very spiritual, very religious, but exceptionally grand.
I was going to say it's a massive understatement to say there was a lot of pomp and circumstance, as only the British can really do. Why do you think these traditional elements of a coronation are so essential, so important?
It's very much part of British history. It's very much part of our history here. And although we might mock it ourselves actually sometimes and take the mickey out of it and say, gosh, we're jolly good at marching, aren't we? And, we're good at all, the pomp and circumstance. But actually, it's who we are. It makes the country up. And it's part of giving us that sort of constance that we know that, these are the things that are going to happen in our society at different times, and they're magnificent moments. We had a lot over the last few months. We had the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, then sadly we had her funeral, which was very grand as well, and then now we've had the coronation. So we've had a lot coming at the same time, so it might seem a little bit over the top, but normally that wouldn't happen. I mean, the last coronation was 50 years ago, 70 years ago, was it? So, it's, very, very exceptional to be able to experience something like that. But it is very much part of our history. It's like when you say, when I was working for the Royal Household, and you'd go to a company or to an organisation, and you'd get a lot of people there saying, oh, I'm not interested in the monarchy. I don't care whether he comes or whether he doesn't come. And then on the day of the visit, they would be the very people that would be right at the front of the queue. It just has that effect on you. That bit of stardust, that bit of ceremony, that bit of history, it has a tremendous effect on people.
I understand there were many personal touches that Charles included, particularly the music, as you mentioned, his love of music. Can you provide any insight on some of those choices, Colleen?
Well, he tried to get as much diversity, I think, into the service as he could. It's a very important, when I say diversity, I mean ethnic diversity, cultural, faith diversity, into it as much as he could. And these are issues that are very close to his heart. He cares that we try to understand other faiths, and that they understand Christianity as well. So it works both ways. And so we did have a gospel choir who sang, and they were absolutely fantastic. We had Welsh singing in the Welsh language, which was gorgeous. Bryn Tifal sang for us. And we also had some other touches. We had a Greek sort of chant as well, which was very moving. It was all, honestly, Katie, I can't tell you, it was so moving. I mean, I think even if you were the least religious person in the world, the sound of the choir, those choristers, the orchestra, the trumpet. I mean, it was just overwhelming. I shed a tear and I looked around and people on my row were crying. I mean, it just, you know, when they play, you know, Zadok, the priest, you just well up. It's so emotional. So it was gorgeous.
Let's turn to Camilla, Colleen, because she seems to elicit very strong opinions. And
Hmm.
of course, I'm sure Princess Diana was in the hearts and minds of many of the people who are watching.
Hmm.
Tell us how you believe Camilla has handled her evolving role.
Well, I think she's done tremendously well. I mean, I first met the Queen, as she is now, when she was going through a very, very difficult patch following the sad death of Diana, Princess of Wales, where the media were very, very aggressive and nasty, and the public as well. We were in some, you know, dreadful situations where the public, you know, shouted out at her and things like that. So I think she went through a very difficult patch. But I think what it shows you now, I mean, they've been married for 18 years. They knew each other, you know, before that as well, is that it is a constant relationship. They adore each other. And I often say when I used to be with them, it was like being with, you know, an old aunt and uncle, just chatting away about all sorts of domestic issues, you know, having their little quibbles together. They absolutely are suited and adore each other. And I think she, you know, I know that she absolutely adores him and she's been there for him. So I think that's the role that she played and the role she wanted to play, to be his support, to be by his side, to be there when he needs her. And that's what she's performed. And I think gradually the public have seen that and grown to admire it and believe in her. Plus, she's got involved as her role has evolved. We've learned more about her and the things that matter to her personally. So she supports a lot of charities around literacy, especially for young people and for adults. But the most important area that she's focused on has been about female abuse. And she's really brought that to the public attention. And to have a member of the royal family do that has really touched a lot of lives and changed people's opinions on those subjects. So I think gradually, slowly, the public have seen she's never spoken out on any of the issues, but they've witnessed someone who has just been there by his side, supporting him through thick and thin, and then gradually showing us the things that matter to her as well.
How do you balance that respect and admiration for the Queen, now Queen Colleen, with the fact that, as Diana said, there were three people in the marriage? That
Well,
must be difficult.
it was difficult, but that, you know, none of us are perfect. And if you put the spotlight on any one of us, there will be flaws. And I think that's the same for the Prince of Wales as he was then, and for the Queen. I think, you know, there were flaws, there were mistakes. It happens to us all. They are human at the end of the day. And I'm not going to try to justify anything or explain anything other than to say, yes, we make mistakes. Life is not always a straight line. You know, things happen, things occur. You don't always make the right decisions or handle things in the right way. But where we've ended up, we can see that there is a real love match there.
Let's talk about Prince Harry, who came to the coronation but wasn't permitted to stand on the balcony since he's no longer an official member of the family. And
Mm.
I'm just curious, Colleen, since you've known now King Charles and Prince William, and I guess still Prince Harry, yes,
Yes, yes,
for
yes.
many, many years, did you ever observe the seeds of this rift between the two brothers when they were younger?
No, no, it's come as a big shock to me. Other than the rough and tough, because they were very young when I knew them. So yes, the rough and tumble of two boys, but there was always enormous love and support. And Harry, as a lot of young brothers do, looked up to his older brother. And I never saw a hint of the where we've ended up today. I never saw a hint of that at all. But things do change when, you know, young people get married and have their own families and have their own views on things. Things do change. But I think it's sad that the rift is so wide now, that it's, you know, the gulf is so wide. It's looking as though it's not going to be mended in short time, at least. I do think that it's quite sad, but I never saw any hint of that. I just saw two young men that were actually, you know, bound together, but a lot by the loss of their mother as well.
It must have been very sad for you to watch their relationship completely unravel.
It has been sad. Yes, I think it is sad because they already went through quite a lot of tragedy when they lost their mum, and that's when I met them. And they were, you know, sensitive young men at that stage, young boys, you know, trying to face lots of different challenges, going to school, going to university, you know, having girlfriends, all those different challenges. And each step was quite difficult because mother wasn't there to lend that support and that guiding hand. So it was always, so it always had each other as their support. And that seemed to work quite well for a while. So it has been sad. And I do hope at some point there will be a reconciliation.
Do you think that they could have changed and helped the monarchy move forward if they had stayed and perhaps moved it from the inside? I'm just curious. Of course, you as a woman of color, Colleen, and some of the tension seems to have come from, you know, discussions about race and the fact that Meghan was biracial, at least from their point of view. And I'm just curious what you believe might have happened if they had stayed.
Well, there was a great optimism, Katie, when they announced their engagement and when they got married. I mean, the public was so delighted. The whole nation was optimistic. And they did bring a new audience to the monarchy. They did bring a lot of young people were more interested. I remember some of their early visits that they did together. The crowds could not have been more diverse. Ethnically diverse, age diversity as well. So they really had a powerful reach. And when we had the four, you know, Prince William, Princess of Wales, and then we had Prince Harry and Meghan together. They called them the Fab Four at the time, and we were all very excited about the future of the monarchy. We thought we'd really moved into a new generation and this was going to be marvelous. So there was a terrific optimism. And so it is a tragedy for the monarchy, I think, that it hasn't worked out, because that really was going to be a new chapter, I think, for them. But they've had to, you know, rethink things. You know, we've got a new king now, and he's talked about, you know, a slimmed down monarchy and how they're going to tackle things in the future. So we'll have to see how that works out. As a Black woman in Britain, I do think the media were a little bit critical of Meghan. I do think she did have a bit of a tricky time. But I do think as well that there's been some cultural misunderstandings as well, because I do think racism in Britain has a slightly different stance to it than racism in America. That sounds a bit sort of philosophical and a bit complicated.
No, but I'm interested. How so, Colleen?
So I just think that our history of, for example, I think I heard Meghan to say that people called her Black when she was here, and she'd never been called Black before. But that is because that's how we address people of color
Who are even biracial.
Yes, sometimes. I mean, it varies, but sometimes, yes. Yeah, there's a lot more variation. There's a lot more subtlety. There's a lot more maybe tolerance here. Maybe we're a little bit more tolerant as well. And a bit more sort of, forgiving. We just say, well, yeah, they don't understand or whatever, and we move on. So I think there was some of that. So I can't help but believe that there might have been some of that as well, just that little bit of cultural misunderstanding, but it's how she felt that matters. And if she felt that people were not treating her in a fair and equal way, then we have to pay attention to that.
Do you think she got enough support within the family? Because it certainly, from their perspective, doesn't sound like it.
The honest answer is I don't know. I mean, I don't know. She I mean, if all I can say is if that's how she felt, then they needed to address it, because it's very hard to get into someone else's head and to see things from their perspective. So you have to listen to what they're saying and then try to address those issues. And maybe they didn't listen enough.
It's fascinating to me, Colleen, how so many people project their views onto people they don't really know or understand based on information they don't really have.
Yes.
And people are so intensely opinionated. And I always think, how do they really know the true story of what might have transpired? And there's so many sides of any story. So I think
that's the truth of it, Katie. That is absolutely the truth of it. We don't know. We don't know what she may or may not have experienced. But if she said this happened and this is how I felt, then I think we owe her, respect, and we should pay attention and try to deal with it. And maybe I think they didn't do that enough.
And maybe there's still time to have some kind of, as you said, reconciliation, and perhaps they could continue to play some kind of important role within
We would love that. We would love
family.
that. Yeah, I think the nation would love that. They would love them to be performing some sort of significant role for the for the royal household. But we just have to wait and see how things work out.
One of the most touching moments during the coronation was when Prince William kissed his father on his cheek, pledging his allegiance during his monarchy. Knowing Prince William as long as you have, how have you seen him grow into the role of the next King of England?
I think it's always been in his mind, even at 17, 18. I do remember him, us having a discussion about it. And he's always taken a serious approach to his position and his role in life. He's always had it there in his head that that's his destiny and that's where he's going to end up. And so I think he's been preparing for it for a long time. And I think he accepts that responsibility. And, when the time comes, he will move into that role in a natural way. I think he's accepted that that's his future.
Do you think that William and Kate will be more accessible as time goes on? Because they're a bit of an enigma at this point in some ways. At least that's my sense.
All right. I think they are doing tremendously well. But it's interesting what you say, because they don't give, the heart-wrenching interviews or any of the personal details of their life. But that then is really typical of most members of the royal family, that they don't, give out that information freely. And I think that Prince William and Princess of Wales have long ago decided that they were going to live their lives privately and have their public duties and their public roles. And they, again, have charitable areas that they're interested in. And that
I was going to ask you, what are those areas? What are their passion points?
Well, the environment is a big one for them both. But the other one is around mental health, which I think they've really turned our attention to the difficulties around mental health. And that again has become, you know, a dinner party conversation, hasn't it, around all of us and our mental health and looking after ourselves. And they have shone a light on that in their own areas. And of course, Princess of Wales is very interested in childcare and nursery education. And so she's, you know, spent a lot of time talking about those areas. But personal life, personal concerns, I think, in fact, I know that William decided that he was not going to go public on those sorts of areas a long time ago. That, you know, that's for him.
65% of people in the UK support the monarchy, but there has been a great deal of discussion about modernizing it, something that King Charles seems to want to do. What steps is he taking to streamline the monarchy and to modernize it?
Katie, the monarchy has been modernizing over many, many years. Queen Elizabeth, in her own way, had modernized the monarchy during her reign. Otherwise, they wouldn't be relevant today. They wouldn't be here today. So they've made lots of changes, and the king will continue to make those subtle changes. That, I would say, is one of the things that they're very good at, is keeping up to date in small little ways, gently and slowly, step by step. And they will continue to do that, reading the public mood and then adapting in a very subtle way. And I think, you know, Queen Elizabeth did that for years. But if you think, you know, she's a child of she was a child of the Edwardian era, brought up in, you know, educated at home, you know, brought up in very different circumstances, and ended her years at a pop concert, you know, very different worlds apart. And I think the same will be for the king, you know, that they do move with the times. They are modernizing all the time. They are reading the mood of the public all the time. And yeah, might not get it right all the time, but most of the time they have, because they're still here.
In fact, many modern issues have arisen about the monarchy in recent years that I think have left many people questioning its purpose, from imperialism, which wasn't discussed, you know, even 10 years ago with as much ferocity, to income inequality. And I'm just curious, Colleen, you've seen this, you've witnessed this. How do you think King Charles, and for that matter, Prince William, will navigate these very modern concerns?
Well, they have already started to address them. As I said, you know, the royal family make their changes subtly and gently over the years. Over the years, the king has talked about the Commonwealth and the royal family's relationship with the Commonwealth. And now that is turning into a bigger and noisier discussion, if you like. But he's, you know, in tune with it. He's been thinking about it, and he's been talking to people about it over, you know, many, many years. And now the discussion around reparation has come up, and, you know, he's going to deal with that. He's already supported a big major research project to look into the Royal Families Association with slavery. And then we'll go from there. Once he's got the answers to that, once he's got the facts in front of him, then we'll go from there and decide how we can best address some of these issues, deal with people's concerns and so on. So I think they're very much in tune with the sensitivities and the difficulties out there, and they are looking to address them. The royal family, I think, is relevant because it does provide us with some sort of constants, some sort of sustainability, you know, and assurance that things are going to be okay. Everything will go on. Politicians come and go, policies come and go, politics changes, the colour of the politics changes and so on. And that's as it should be. And the country moves forward. But the royal family are always there as a backdrop, supporting the nation, being there at important times of crisis, being assured. Yes, they've had their hiccups as well. And I think in some way it's helped the public to become a little bit closer to them in some ways, to see that, yes, they too have their own personal challenges as well. But nevertheless, the institution is there, providing its pomp and circumstance, giving us that everyday bit of assurance that, Britain is Britain and it will continue and it will be here. And also occasionally having to step in and stop the politicians from going down particular roads that might not be beneficial to the country at large. So I think they perform quite an important role, a very important role for Britain today as it stands.
King Charles will be stepping into some very controversial areas that have created a great deal of tension, I think, among certain groups, certainly in the United States, and I imagine in Great Britain as well. Queen Elizabeth was celebrated for remaining politically neutral and working with all kinds of prime ministers as she had to. Given King Charles' penchant for activism, might he get into some hot water by blurring the lines between the political leadership and his role as king?
It is a challenge. It is a challenge, but he had to wait 50 years for this role. So he's had a lot of practice. He watched how his mother performed. He admired her greatly. He wanted this role as well. He's waited for this role. It's his destiny. So I think he will do the right thing. I think he will do what is right for the role and for the country. He will still be passionate about the things that he's passionate about, but he will manage things in an appropriate way for a king.
Do you think he'll forever feel he's living in his mother's shadow?
I hope not. I hope it's a different generation. As I said, she's a woman of an Edwardian era, and she performed her role brilliantly, but with a particular history, a particular education, particular culture. He's a man of the 21st century. And so you wouldn't want him to perform things in exactly the same way. It's got to be a bit more up to date, a bit more relevant for all of us. And I think he will do that. So hopefully it'll be a sort of seamless continuity.
Do you think the people of England will be cheering him on or hoping for him to fail? You wonder about the general sentiment about him.
I think that the public, they have had an up and down relationship with him, but at the moment they're generally supportive. I think generally supportive, and I think as he continues to perform his role, his new role, that will grow over time. I think there's been a little bit of a hiccup because of change, because of the death of Queen Elizabeth. And then the big coronation as well. And so people have seen the opportunity to talk about abdication and, we don't want monarchy anymore. They've seen that as a window of opportunity, and that's absolutely fine. We encourage debate and discussion. That's absolutely fine. But I think as time goes on and the king performs his role and the queen performs her role, and I think people will say, well, yeah, it's nice to have that continuity, it's good for the country, and we'll just carry on with it as we are. So I think there'll be an acceptance